What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a film that Shudder uploaded recently that is a little bit older. This movie was released in 1995, and I had never heard of this film before, but I read some reviews on Letterboxd and saw some early reactions, and people were calling this a hidden gem that more people needed to watch. And so I jumped on Shudder and watched it as quickly as I could, and the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is called Mute Witness. Mute Witness is directed by Anthony Waller. Billy is mute, but it hasn't kept her from becoming a successful makeup artist. While in Russia, working on a film directed by her sister's boyfriend Andy, Billy finds herself trapped in a studio one night and is horrified to see a snuff film being made. Billy escapes and, with the help of her sister Kate, alerts authorities about what she saw. Unfortunately, in doing so, she makes an enemy of the Russian mafia who funded the snuff film. So, I was very excited to watch this because a lot of people were calling it a hidden gem and like that it was a movie that more people needed to check out. And I found this movie to be very entertaining, but it is incredibly flawed as well. I was watching it, and as I was watching the movie, all I could think about was how close it got to being something truly special, especially in the first 25 or 30 minutes. It really felt like a classic was unfolding in front of me, and I was so excited. And then it started to take some missteps, and by the middle to third act, I was a lot less invested. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it today when I go into detail of the film. So that plot description at the beginning was very thorough. We're introduced to Billy at the beginning of the film, who is mute, who is working on this film with her sister's boyfriend. And we see the production of the film at the beginning. It's very like cliche slasher movie, and it's really well shot, and the tension is built really great. And then there's some comedy added in the beginning, and it's balanced really well. A lot of it reminded me kind of Scream a little bit with how self-aware it was as far as the slasher genre is concerned. And so we get to see the behind the scenes on the set, and they wrap for the night, and Billy has to go back onto the set to get something that she forgot. And when she goes back inside, she gets locked into the building, and her sister and her sister's boyfriend, the director, have left the set for the night, and she stumbles upon these people in a back room shooting a porno. And at first she kind of laughs to herself, and she thinks it's funny, and they don't see her in the background. And while they're shooting, the man on screen with the woman in the porno ends up pulling a knife and killing the woman right in front of her. She is shortly after discovered, and these two men chase her throughout the entire building, and she manages to escape, as the plot description states. And the rest of the film is the police become involved, but they don't find any evidence, so they let the people go. And the Russian mafia is involved in this somehow. And the entire film is Billy, her sister, and the director trying to evade the Russian mafia. So as I said, I thought this movie was very entertaining, especially in the first 25 to 30 minutes. For starters, I think the performances in this are all really solid. Our lead actress, because she does not speak a line of dialogue, has to do a lot through her facial expressions and her bodily movements, and she's incredibly talented. Especially in the first 20 minutes, there's this really incredible chase sequence throughout the movie studio that's really high stakes and tension filled, and the way that the director and the cinematographer work together to capture this space and kind of put you in the lead character's shoes keeps you on the edge of your seat and really keeps you invested in the story. And I loved where that went throughout. I also think the comic relief of the boyfriend and the sister work really well in moments to kind of cut the tension briefly. And I think it's balanced really well early on in the film. As I said, the cinematography in this is really great. It's very simple, but there's a lot of attention to detail and how specific shots are framed to convey the danger from the lead character's perspective. And I think when you can put yourself in their shoes and see the type of things that they're worried about stumbling upon, or the fears that they have of being captured in that moment, and showcasing the violence that these people commit towards this woman while they're shooting this film, you're immediately presented with the danger, and then that sits with you through the runtime of the movie. And I just found this to be really entertaining, but that's where the problems begin. I feel like at about the halfway point to getting close to the halfway point, when we're pulled out of the movie studio and Billy is like back at her apartment, I felt like a lot of the scenes began to get a little repetitive, and when the new characters were introduced, as far as the law enforcement is concerned, and they try to place these like twists and turns with specific characters' loyalty to whether they're like trying to help or they're affiliated with the Russian mafia. I became a lot less invested in the story. I really wish most of this movie would have just been that cat and mouse game at the studio, because that's when I was really invested. Once we pulled out of there, there was a lot more like goofy comedy introduced in the middle, and I was all for the comedic levity that the film was providing early on. I felt like it did a nice job balancing with the drama that the film had, but once the comedy was played into with a little bit more force, it was less interesting to me. It felt like it kind of lost track of how to balance those tones, and that's when the movie was significantly less compelling. And in the third act, there's a new character introduced who, there was moments with him that I really enjoyed, and I felt like he added a lot to the film, but there was also so much of like, is his loyalty to actually helping them, or is his loyalty to the Russian mafia? And it was all about finding this diskette of the porn film that was being shot, and whether or not that would have the evidence that they would need to show that these guys had committed a crime. And that dialogue sequence just kept repeating itself over and over again, to where I felt like it was trying to pad a specific runtime rather than create a compelling narrative. And that's when the movie became a little bit jumbled for me. But I was still entertained through it. And I think because of the performances from these actors, it's easy to stay invested in the movie, where in other circumstances, it might get a little bit more tedious if the actors weren't as great or if the film wasn't shot as well. There's also a really nice score accompanying this that I felt like kept the tension up as well. But yeah, I feel like this is a really enjoyable movie that just has a lot of flaws, and it's streaming on Shudder right now. And I feel like if you're into the era of like Wes Craven's Scream, or kind of like the revitalization of the slasher or cat and mouse type of thriller movies where there's killers out to get a character, this was a really fun one that I probably would have never watched if it wasn't for Shudder. And if you're looking for something entertaining from the 90s, this is definitely a movie worth checking out. So have you seen Mute Witness? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was a lot of fun. It was really entertaining, but it was incredibly flawed as well. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.